Welcome to Bloomberg Crypto, a look at the people, transactions, and technology shaping the world of decentralized finance. Live from Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York City, I'm Matt Miller. Bitcoin is ripping today. The move comes about 26 hours before the big Fed decision. The first U.S. rate cut in more than 4 years is expected to set the stage for riskier assets such as crypto. Former President Donald Trump unveiling his crypto platform, and his son's also promoting it. He leans into digital assets in search of donations and votes amid a tight election race. And we're going to talk about crypto's role in this election cycle with Coinbase's head of U.S. policy, Calvert, her firm, one of the top spenders across all of the races. That's all ahead, but first let's take a closer look at where Bitcoin is trading. As I said, it's ripping today. It's surged, bringing it to the highest level that we've seen this month, pushing its year-to-date gains to around 40%. Right now, Bitcoin trading at more than $61,000. Meanwhile, MicroStrategy recently bought even more Bitcoin, this time another 18,000 coins in its biggest transaction in more than 3 years. The company, led by Michael Saylor, dropped some $1.1 billion on Bitcoin between August and this month, according to an SEC filing. It now holds about 245,000 Bitcoin, valued in total at about $14 billion. Now, when it comes to politics, last night, Donald Trump headlined an event billed as the unveiling of his crypto platform. It is called World Liberty Financial, and he reiterated that the U.S. must take the lead in crypto.
My attitude is different. If we don't do it, China's going to do it. China's doing it anyway.
They are.
But if we don't do it, we're not going to be the biggest, and we have to be the biggest and the best.
Bloomberg's Zeke Fox recently reported Trump's lead into crypto. He wrote a story on the terminal that I highly recommend checking out, and he joins us now as well. Zeke, great to have you here in the studio with us. Tell us about last night, what was it, a Twitter Spaces, where Donald Trump teamed up with some of his kids. Barron wasn't there, and an interesting figure in the world of crypto.
Yeah, so this was billed as like the moment we'd all learn about World Liberty Financial. Trump's been promoting it on Twitter. Don Jr. and Eric, they've been saying this is going to make finance great again, but they haven't really said exactly what it is. And spoiler alert, even after 2 hours of talking, they didn't quite say last night either. But they did bring out some of their business partners, the guys who seem to have gotten in the Trump son's ear about starting their own crypto venture. One of them, I thought his resume was particularly interesting. His name's Chase Hero, and he calls himself in videos on YouTube the dirtbag of the internet. So I was pretty surprised to see him called up on stage with the Trumps last night.
So what has Chase Hero done in the past? What brings him to this moment and meeting with the Trump family?
So he started off as a weed dealer, went to prison, got out, became an internet marketer where he sold things like colon cleanses. Most recently, he's had a $149 a month get-rich-quick class, and he got into crypto. He had a DeFi platform that wasn't particularly successful. He's not like a famous guy in crypto, but through a real estate developer who's friends with Trump, he got to meet the Trumps. And last night, he and the Trump sons talked about how they get together a lot. They talk about crypto. He's been teaching them how to use DeFi, and the Trump sons apparently wanted to start their own platform. I mean, and it's pretty wild. Like, there's not that many days until the election, and Trump is spending his Monday night promoting like a new for-profit venture.
Yeah, well, you got to make the money, right? Apparently, Barron Trump doesn't need to be taught about DeFi, right? He's their chief DeFi scientist. What is his title?
Yes. So I've seen a draft white paper for the project. He's listed as chief DeFi visionary. He's 18 years old.
Visionary.
He just started his freshman year at NYU. It seemed like they were hoping he'd show up for the Spaces last night, but maybe he had an early class this morning, so he didn't call in.
I see. So Barron wasn't there, but Don Jr. and Eric were there. Was Chase Hero also on the X call?
Yeah, Chase was there. He didn't give too many details, but they seemed to be aware of our story, pointing out his resume. They talked a little bit about like the fake news, and Don Jr. said about Chase, this is like one of the smartest guys I've met, and he said that if you brought him into a boardroom at Goldman Sachs, he'd blow everybody there away, which was pretty wild to hear.
All the things you learn in prison. Zeke, thanks so much. Zeke Fox, they are talking to us about Donald Trump's new, what's it called, Prestige Worldwide? Is it that something like that, right?
It's World Liberty Financial.
World Liberty Financial. Zeke, thanks very much. Catch Zeke's book, by the way, Number Go Up, about the rise and fall of Sam Bankman-Fried. It is out in paperback October 1st with a new chapter. Metafide CEO Frank Speiser joins me now to discuss Trump's plans and what's next for Bitcoin, as well as Mantle, which is a layer 2 above Ether that a lot of people are talking about. Let's start, though, Frank, with Donald Trump's worldwide financial, I don't know what it is. Apparently no one really knows what it is, but they had a 2-hour Twitter Spaces. Did you catch any of that pitch?
I didn't catch much of that because I was on my way here to Token 2049 here in Singapore, so I wasn't able to catch it. But I did some reading. And it looks like what they've got is some type of flash loan protocol similar to Aave, where you're looking to settle transactions inside the space of a block. And their project says that they will drive adoption of stable tokens. So I'm going to guess it's some kind of settlement, maybe across exchanges, across different kind of asset classes using crypto, and possibly maybe something to do with real world tokenization. But it looks like the concept is to take flash loans and apply it towards stable token currencies to settle.
Is it the talk of the conference? As you say, you're at Token 2049 in Singapore, gorgeous background there. Are people talking about that, or is this just a distraction? Is this just noise in a world where, serious people like yourself want to get things done?
Well, anytime a former president gets involved in, cryptocurrency or blockchain, it's going to have some talk, but mainly the talk here from the other execs that I've spoken to is a dawn of a new era. We're moving past the meme tokens. Everybody appreciates the timing of the Trump statement or announcement because they see that it's time to move with the industry as it progresses past its adolescent phase, past the meme tokens, past trendy type of investments, and towards more financial infrastructure and things that actually innovate in the financial space. There's a lot of talk about, financial innovation and, real world assets here at the conference.
It's interesting to me that the former president is so in now on crypto. Previously, he said it was a scam. At least that was his comment about Bitcoin. But I've always thought of crypto as an alternative to fiat currency, right? The idea is this sort of libertarian ideal that I can get away from the U.S. dollar. Is that how you think other people at the conference see it as well?
Yes, there's quite a bit of that. And the promise of crypto is that you're not tied to government permission to transact inside of economic systems. And I think what you're seeing with Trump is probably a response to him being targeted and realizing that if somebody could just turn off the tap, both socially and economically for him, it takes his power away. And so it's one of those things where, if it can happen to him, it can happen to anybody. And I think he sees the application of it being used to resist censorship and sort of government control to live according to its economic, purview. So you don't have to just give in to whatever the government says in order to transact it. It preserves free speech and lets people, like you said, have an alternative to a unified financial system controlled by just a very few people. So hopefully we're moving into that era and getting past some of the some of the distractions that we've had in cryptocurrency so far.
Yeah, I thought, I lived for a couple of weeks on Bitcoin. More than 10 years ago, I bought groceries with it, gas, beer. It was pretty cool. But now it's not something I would ever want to spend, right? If I have any Bitcoin, I'm not letting go of it when it appreciates at this pace. Does that change? Does Metafide somehow help make crypto transactional? What are you doing at Metafide?
At Metafide, what we do is we take humans that are involved in financial systems and have an opinion about financial systems and allow them to input what they think is going to happen into financial models. So we basically bridge human sentiment and human opinion into models that are trading on, that are producing asset prices and predictions. So it basically takes hard AI and hard tech and allows the opinion and a non-rational piece of humans to be incorporated into those models. We don't necessarily trade Bitcoin for for ourselves, but we do transact on hedge fund clients. And you're right. Bitcoin's not something that you want to just go ahead and spend because it's not a stable token. It's not tied to fiat currency in the existing systems. And when it's doing what it's supposed to do, the price just continues to go up. So it's a fixed supply currency in a sort of a world that is inflating its money supply. So when it's behaving like it should, the price of Bitcoin should go up relative to the price of the dollar.
All right. Well, Frank, it's been great having you on. Looking forward to having you after your coin launch. Metafide CEO Frank Speiser there talking to us from the Token 2049 conference in Singapore. Coming up, why it costs up to 10 times more to protect digital assets, creating a major opportunity for banks. And Coinbase's head of U.S. policy joins us from Washington, D.C. A few weeks ago, her colleague told us he's confident no matter what happens in this year's election, Congress will turn pro-crypto.
No legislation is perfect, and Fit 21 is no exception to that, but it's a strong bill which includes the most critical protections for market structure. And I think there's no question about it. We are going to see a pro-crypto Congress emerge, regardless of the particular outcome in individual races and, of course, the outcome in the presidential race.
To stop this onslaught and lower prices, I'm pledging today that in my second term, we will eliminate a minimum of 10 old regulations for every one new regulation. We'll be able to do that quite easily, actually. And instead of attacking industries of the future, we will embrace them, including making America the world capital for crypto and Bitcoin.
That was former President Donald Trump earlier this month discussing his stance on both regulations. He's been pretty clear about the fact that he's anti-regulation and crypto. He's been pretty clear about the fact that he is now pro-cryptocurrency. Let's bring in Coinbase's head of U.S. policy, Calvert, to talk more about the political environment right now. Kara, it does seem that on both sides of the aisle, you're going to get a much warmer welcome in Washington after this November. Does one candidate's stance or the others seem more attractive to you?
I think both candidates are actually coming to the table for different reasons, but they are in fact coming to the table. And I think that that is a change, particularly with this election. And I think that that is happening because there are so many Americans, 52 million Americans, who actually care about crypto. And there are people who have joined standwithcrypto.org. There are 1.45 million people who've signed up who say they want to vote for candidates who are pro-crypto. I think that's what's bringing both Vice President Harris and President Trump to the table.
What do you think, though, about his, full-scale conversion? President Trump previously said Bitcoin was a scam. Now he goes to crypto conferences and claims that he's going to make America the #1 home of crypto innovation and creation. I mean, we are kind of that already, right? But is that a more secure message for the industry?
I think it's a message actually that resonates on both sides of the aisle. I do think Trump has embraced it. And I think that that was a ground shift when he identified that we needed to keep innovation here in America. We needed to be competitive. We needed to make sure that Bitcoin was available and that people could self-custody their own assets. That was a big moment, I think, for the industry. And I do think, though, on both sides, Democrats, Republicans, we saw it in Congress with a vote earlier this year where everybody that voted for that bill said it's important to have rules of the road because that is going to keep us competitive in this global economy. So I do think Trump has had a big impact, but I think that there are many, many Democrats who also see it for the same reason. It's important to have competitiveness. It's important to have the prevalence of the U.S. dollar. It's important to make sure that our innovators can continue to stay onshore. And frankly, that we keep it safe onshore. The worst thing we can do is push these overseas into industries and different places where there are no regulations. So I really think having everybody come to the table is a shift from what we saw even a year ago.
So you actually want regulation. And we've been hearing this from the crypto crowd for a couple of years now. You need some kind of regulation in order to build a really legitimate industry. You also mentioned the U.S. dollar. Do you need the prevalence of the U.S. dollar to continue?
Well, I think if you look at things like stablecoins, right, those are actually pegged to the U.S. dollar. And it's important as we think about that being the global reserve currency that we actually continue to do that and we embrace stablecoins here in the U.S. And in order to do that, you need to have a set of ground rules. And that's where I think where it's the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, Congress, the White House, everybody needs to come together to determine what those rules of the road look like. That doesn't mean a central bank digital currency. That means rules of the road for how we hold those types of assets, how we leverage those type of assets, how we use those to pay. I heard the earlier spot about using Bitcoin to pay. Ultimately, you're going to need to be able to transfer these for value, for payment systems. And that's where I think some of these other assets really come into play.
What are the most transactional coins out there? Because clearly you're not going to use Bitcoin to buy stuff right now. We were talking to Michael Saylor a couple of weeks ago, and he said, like, no way, Jose. Like, you borrow $1 against your Bitcoin holding and then spend the $1. What are the tokens that you see people actually using for daily life?
So I think it's actually really starting to emerge. And this is, we often talk about use cases and utility. And so when you think about payment systems, that's where I do think stable coins are really going to move the way we transact. But there are other assets that I think are going to improve the way we transact in other parts of our life, whether it's NFTs and thinking about music, concert tickets, or if we're thinking about holding your ID on your phone, if you're thinking about ways to validate who you are on the internet. All of those they all hold value. So it's going to be different assets and how we transact in that value. That doesn't necessarily mean it's just the U.S. dollar.
Kara, we always focus, obviously, on the presidential race on the top of the ticket, but there are down ballot races that are very important to policy as well. What are you focused on at Coinbase? Where are you spending your lobbying dollars?
Yeah, so we are 100% focused on ensuring that one, we help educate lawmakers who are in office today about why crypto is important, about why their constituents care about it, about the thousands and thousands of developers and builders who are here in their districts who want to create jobs and who want to engage. And so that's our first part of the job, is the educational component. The second part is helping our constituents and helping all the different crypto users out there know who their candidates are, know who their members of Congress are, know who their local officials are. And that's one of the reasons why I think Coinbase has been so interested. About a year ago, Stand With Crypto launched here in the United States. It launched with Stand With Crypto Day last September. And now, 12 months later, we went from about 20,000 people to 1.45 million people who have signed up. And they're going to standwithcrypto.org to learn about their candidates. There's a scorecard. There are thousands of candidates in all the different elections. Hundreds of those have filled out a questionnaire that says where they stand on crypto policy. And then importantly, there's standwithcrypto.org/vote. And I'll give my call to action to everybody to go learn where you can go to your polling place, learn about your candidates, learn when and how to vote, early voting. I think that's what we're trying to do, is kind of the second half of this, is trying to help make sure that, organizations like Stand With Crypto really can connect with those constituencies, those 52 million Americans who own crypto.
All right, Kara, great having you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us. Coinbase's head of U.S. policy, Kara Calvert, talking to us about the elections. Now, J.P. Morgan Chase, a breaking story, in talks with Apple about taking over the tech giant's credit card program, I should say, not a problem, from Goldman Sachs. This, according to a Wall Street Journal story. Apple and Goldman Sachs are the current issuer, of course, of that white, elegant Apple card. They decided to part ways last year, and now it is being reported again in the Wall Street Journal that J.P. Morgan is going to take over that credit card business in some shape or form from Goldman Sachs and run it for Apple. Apple shares turning a little bit lower on the day at 216. J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs, obviously this isn't big enough business to really move their shares, but they happen to be up about 0.7% at this stage in the trading day. Coming up, why it costs so much more to protect digital assets like Bitcoin from the usual suspects compared to fiat currency. We're going to talk about that with the reporter who wrote the story on the Bloomberg terminal. To access all of the latest data and news on crypto, including that story, check out CRYP Go on the terminal. This is Bloomberg. Let's talk now about how Wall Street is working to safeguard the $2 trillion in digital assets that are out there. It costs up to 10 times more to protect cryptocurrencies than it does to protect traditional assets like securities and cash, according to one estimate, which creates a real opportunity for the big banks as well as the little startups. Bloomberg's Olga Kharif reported on this and joins us now out of Portland. Olga, I think it's an absolutely fascinating story, and for those who work in, the intersection between crypto and Wall Street, it's so key to making money. But why does it cost so much more to protect, Bitcoin than it does to protect, a U.S. savings account in dollars?
Sure. So most cryptocurrencies are bearer assets. So it means if you lost it, it's not in your custody anymore, then, it's not your property anymore. So that means that it's key to safeguard this from hackers, which have been plentiful in this space. And, every year, billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrencies are stolen in just hacks. And there are so many ways to lose this asset. So it costs a lot of money to do this right.
I mean, I wish I had all the dollars that I've lost over my lifetime. But who is the best at custodying digital assets? Who's the winner out there?
So there are so-called qualified custodians. It takes special licensing, and those companies essentially are pretty highly regulated and overseen. And so qualified custodians are the companies that most investors flock to, especially institutional investors, to make sure that their assets are protected. And a lot of investors are also starting to pay more attention to the small print, who exactly is the custodian of their assets and the various investments that they make, because it's emerged as a very important point because so many investors have lost assets.
All right, Olga, great having you on the program. I highly recommend people go on the Bloomberg terminal or on our website at Bloomberg.com to check out your story. Olga Kharif writing a story about the crypto custodian business being really a lucrative business, and Wall Street, as she says, wants in. That's all for Bloomberg Crypto. Join us again next week when your regular hosts are back. I'm Matt Miller. This is Bloomberg.